In this lesson, we'll work on familiarizing ourselves with some of the tools found within the menus of the track view. I have a little bit of animation in this scene just so we could use an example here to go through some of the tools within the track view. Again, we want to understand exactly where they can be found and also what they do to see if it can be a tool we can possibly use to improve our work. So going to the track view here, the curve editor, we can start right at the top at modes, and we understand that modes is how we can cycle between our curve editor or dope sheet. Underneath the controller menu, we can assign controllers this way. We can delete those controllers, make controllers keyable. We can copy and paste tracks underneath. So this is similar to going to a track, right-clicking and choosing copy and paste. This is a way to copy and paste entire function curves, not to be confused with copy and pasting individual keys. Okay, underneath we have collapse controller. This is a way we can extract keyframe data from procedural animation, and we're actually going to take a look at that later on in the training. We also have animation layers underneath. This would add a layer controller to whatever track we have selected. We're actually going to look at animation layers shortly as well. Ignore animation range and respect animation range. This would be for tracks that aren't necessarily animatable, but that did have some type of effect to our animation. So let's say if we applied a noise type of filter to one of our animated tracks. Well, what we can then do is tell the Telemax if we'd like to have that effect occur even before or after our animation range, or respect animation would just have it look at the animation range and have it play accordingly. Underneath we have make unique, which basically takes a cloned F-curve and makes it into just a copy which is unique. Underneath we have out of range types, which basically allows us to cycle our animations, and we're going to look at that very shortly too. Properties allows us to get to our key info dialog. Alright, now that brings us to the tracks menu. Note tracks, this is nice if we'd like to add a note in our animations on a certain frame. This works with the dope sheet, so we can move there. And I'll bother the rotation Y track. So let's say if our director wanted us to add a little bit more spin to this animation here. Well, what he can do with the track selected is go to Tracks, Note Track, and Add. Now to actually add a note, you'd simply use the Add Key tool. Now watch this. As we click to add a note, you'll see that instead of getting a keyframe, we have a note. And if we were to right click, we can go to our Move Key tool and actually move this note wherever we like in time. So I've just moved it to frame 10, and to actually add the note now, we'd right click on the note icon. So we can type within this dialog, we can say add more spin, you animator, and there we have it. So if we were to close this out, we'll see our note. And if we were to right click, we can lock this note down in time so we cannot move or scale it. And we could also toggle or cycle between different notes we have in time. And even move our note in time using the time field. Alright, and if you'd ever like to remove your note, you can simply go to keys with it, or excuse me, go to tracks with it selected and go to remove note track. What we also have is the ability to make visibility tracks. We can go back to the curve editor for that. I'm not going to actually apply it, but this is a nice way to add visibility, a visibility parameter on your objects. And by using this, this would be a great tool for rigging purposes. This is what I'd primarily use it for let's say hiding or showing IK/FK controls. Alright, that brings us to our keys menu. We can add keys. We saw the tool for that. We saw the hotkey, or we can see the hotkey for that as well, which is A. We can reduce keys from this menu, move, slide, scale keys. We could even use the soft select on keys. So that might work very handy for you. If I were to just go back to this rotate Y track, select the key, notice we can apply the soft select to this, and it will influence keys around it as we move. Great. And we do have settings for that underneath. Okay, so next we have align the cursor, and this is actually going to take a selected key and align it to our current time. So if I were to move to, let's say, frame 36, with the key selected, we can go to Keys, Align a Cursor, and it's going to snap right to our current time. So that might be very useful for you. And underneath that, we have Snap Frame. So with this turned off, we can move keys to subframes, which is a time between frames. Going to the Curves menu, this is where we can magnify our time or value. So the ease curve is going to affect our time. Again, with the rotate Y track selected, if I were to apply an ease curve to this and expand this, we'll probably want to select the ease curve and also the rotate Y track so we can see how this ease curve is going to affect this F curve. So if I were to select one of the keys of the ease curve and move this around, you can see what type of effect that's going to give us. I'd say that this would be more useful if you were working with several keys. And if you'd like to ever remove it, you'd simply go to that track, go to Curves, and simply choose Remove. Now the multiplier curve, if we were to add that to another track, this is going to affect our value. So we can see that as we move this key around, how it's going to intensify our value. Alright, so I'll go ahead and remove that as well, and underneath we have the ability to generate keyframes after we have edited our values, okay, or edited our time. Once we get an idea of how the curve out of range works for cycling animation, we'll understand how this option works. I'm going to go ahead and remove this multiplier track, and we can now move to the next menu, and this is very nice. The first choice we have here is Interactive Update. Now you'll notice, let me go ahead and find our ship here so it's not hiding. Okay, so there we have it. So you notice if we were to go to one of these keys, let's say our position X track, and move the key, we won't see any update in the animation until we let go. But with Interactive Update turned on, we'll be able to see that update automatically, and I really like to leave this turned on. Underneath we have Sync Time Cursor. So this is a way to actually scrub through your animations just to see how certain sections look, and then move right back to your current time. So if we were to use Sync Cursor Time, notice I can scrub the animation, but once I let go, it goes right back to the current time. Alright, next we have different ways we can expand our tracks or even select tracks and scroll. And then we also have manual navigation as well. Under Display, this is where we can show key stats. We can show all of our tangents if we like. We can show custom icons. What these are, they basically change our object icons from 2D shaded to 3D. So that's a nice little feature. And underneath we can show all keyable icons. Okay, and we can even hide or show non-selected curves. So notice if we go to show, that's going to show us everything. We can even go through and select the keys. But commonly I like to just go ahead and use the hide non-selected curves. That way can just focus on what tracks I have selected. Now, if we were to go back to show non-selected curves, you can, if you'd like, now freeze non-selected curves, and notice that templates our curves. So we cannot select those keys. And also, just to quickly note, if you notice that as you move around, you're just moving your cursor, your time cursor, that's because you need to go back to your options and toggle that off. So when you turn on interactive update, notice that turns it off for you and still keeps your interactive update working. I'm going to go ahead and go back to hide non-selected curves here. Alright, next what we have are our different filters to hide certain tracks. And then we have the view menu for just working with the navigation tools of the track view. And we see hotkeys as well. And then utilities. These are great ways to randomize our keys if we like, or create keys after we have cycled animation. Or we can even select certain keys by time. The Euler filter is nice. We're actually going to look at that in the next lesson. We have the soft select manager here, and even the current value editor, which allows us to offset our entire f-curves and value. So that's a quick look at the different menus of the curve editor. Again, we want to know exactly where each tool lies within these menus so we can possibly apply it to our animations and enhance our work. So that finishes this lesson, and in the next lesson we'll discuss the Euler filter.